Hey, what's up, Alan? I'm here with Jay Malinowski from Bedouin Soundclash.
How are you?
Man? Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for playing.
Yes.
You showed up with Kenny. That's a nice welcome surprise in the morning. Kenny from Moneen. We were just talking about it.
Yeah.
Be very clear about that.
Yeah, be as
Buy
clear
their new
as possible.
album.
Yeah. Moneen's got a new record out. That's all we're promoting.
Yeah. Jay's here to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's talk about your solo record because it's a pretty important record for you.
Yeah.
You're just throwing it all out there.
Yeah, it's pretty personal for sure. It's strange because about a couple weeks ago I sort of thought to myself, I don't really know if I want these songs to come out anymore. I kind of had this night where I was lying in bed and being like, well, I know that because the people I know that I've written them about aren't excited about it. Yeah. And then I've also got to come clean on my side of it. So, yeah, it is highly personal.
That was going to be one of my first questions. I mean, is it easier to be that personal, or is it harder to be that personal when you're by yourself? You know what I mean? You're not with a band on stage. It's just you.
I guess it depends on what you're doing, but for this like solo project, the reason I did it is to be more honest, because with playing with Bedouin, you're playing with a larger concept in mind than just your own personal problems or whatever. So, and my whole goal is I guess as any musician, I think you want to show something of yourself, and then when people relate to it, it makes you feel a little bit more at peace with the world, that other people can relate to the same things you're going through. And I think that's why people love music in general. But it also means that you've really given up a huge private part of your life, I don't even know, I don't know if when you listen to the record, the stuff that I know is necessarily all that evident. Maybe it just sounds like a love song or something, but...
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, once it goes into the public, it's kind of it's open for translation.
Yeah, sure.
And that actually, I was reading your MySpace, and a guy from Georgia, the country, had written a letter to you, which kind of sums up exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's actually, I was in the, I can't pronounce his name, Timuri Kagaradze. Yeah, anyways, he's from Georgia. He's a Russian political journalist, I guess. And I was writing, at the time when I was writing the record, he sent that note, and he'd basically been captured by Russian militia and held in Georgia, and I guess he said a couple of his friends had been killed. And that's one thing that kept him sober, was listening to music. So it was like, because at that time I was sort of thinking, it seems when you do play in a band, it starts to become extremely self-serving feeling. Like maybe it's not, maybe it's all about release dates, singles, and talking about yourself all day. And are you really affecting any change in any real way, to like a regular person?
Yeah, no, I get that, man. I have to interview bands all the time, and it's like, there's a point where you're like, okay, you're not jumping into a fire, saving people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that cynicism, I became cynical like that too, and it's the worst part, we have a real problem with cynicism in our society nowadays. Because like, people, like kids say like, oh, anything you do, oh, what was your real reason for doing it? Like, we'll say something like Bono, oh yeah, but he only does that for his own ends. Instead of just looking at it like it was a good thing that someone's doing it. But then at the same time, there are artists, when you watch Live Aid or something like that, and it's so self-serving, and it creates a major sense of cynicism with kids, because they can smell that and go, what can I believe in now in this day and age? Like in the 60s, it made sense. It was all kind of simple. And now it's really hard to get to the truth,
Well, I mean, this album is very honest, you know what I mean? Like, you're airing out some stuff. And, I mean, are you a spiritual guy?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. And I definitely lost a lot of spirituality on the road, coming back to cynicism. But yeah, I think we all are. Like, maybe you're not religious.
Yeah.
But I think every human being is spiritual. You have to be.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, just being congruent with what you believe in. And when you're not, maybe you start doing things to make sure that you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you play music that's, I mean, even in Bedouin, that has that soul, that soul stuff. I wondered, what came first for you? I mean, did reggae come first for you? Did punk come first for you? Did folk music come first for you? Were you always picking up an acoustic and writing?
Yeah, folk came first. When I was younger, we listened. It was like we listened to like punk music, but the things that connected to me really was like Bob Dylan. Like my mom would get Bob Dylan tapes or Leonard Cohen tapes, Joni Mitchell, even like Cat Stevens. But that's why I love the Clash, because Joe Strummer was like Woody Guthrie. You know, like I could listen to the Clash and you could hear his folk and with the Mescaleros, it was the same thing. And the Clash got me into reggae. Like I used to watch, like, you know, like they had this great series on punk, on history of rock and roll, but the punk series, and they get to the reggae part and I'd be like, God, I don't like this part. Like, what's with reggae? I don't know. It all sounds the same to me. But the Clash like showed a kid like me like that music's extremely deep and has all this meaning to it. And then when I met Eon, that was like, I showed him the specials, and like he didn't know much about that. He only knew about like dance hall and his side of the West Indian side of things, which punk kind of let go of in the 80s. So after Yellow Man, no one really cared about Jamaica that way, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the impetus for why we started. But my point was always like songwriting, stories, those never die. And anyone who can do them well and make them relevant again, and they're the same stories that Woody Guthrie was singing about, or Hank Aaron or something like that, then you make them new again. And that's like why I love that's kind of how I got into reggae, was really through the Clash, because of that.
Yeah, I mean, they did that for a lot of bands, and I mean, a lot of people.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, I mean, it's weird. Like the last week or like the last 2 weeks, I've had to interview a lot of punk dudes with acoustic guitars. So Frank Turner,
Okay.
Chuck Reagan,
Yeah.
and Tim Barry.
Yeah.
And all of them, you know, they talk about how they're writing stories.
Uh-huh.
And I guess it's that tie to like folk and, you know, punk and stuff you're talking about. Is there like a social or political side to your music? Maybe not on this record, but I mean with Bedouin.
There's a social political side on this record too. A song like Narceritos, which is about how we treat addicts in the downtown Lower East Side in Vancouver. Which you know, and there's a few songs in it. I think there's two sides, right? Like there's like those, what came out, I think, with a band like Hot Water Music. They're like a grassroots, like they're a Bruce Springsteen punk band.
Totally. Working
Right?
class values.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd say like the punk rock, then there was the other stream, like punk at the time, then you could go like the new wave side, right? So now we have new wave bands, which you could consider punk too. But it seems like the side that still has its fan base, which is always there, is that kind of meat and potatoes, writing those three chord punk rock songs about living the week, like working for the weekend kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that they're all now doing these kind of Bruce Springsteen like records, right? Because you can only do that for so long, and then you maybe need to show the softer side of Chuck Reagan.
Yeah. Worst job you've ever had?
Working in a veneer shop, like where we'd veneer precious wood onto crappy wood.
Okay.
For people's cabinets or something like that to make it look expensive.
Pain in the ass?
It was a union. They hated me.
Not good when the union hates you.
Well, you know, it's like, they're like, oh, all right, kid, and like, go sweep the floors. And, you know, I was like, if I have to spend, it's killing my soul. So I got to get out of here. Right? So,
Yeah.
And they don't think it's all that cool that you think playing music is a good way of living. You know?
Yeah.
Grow up. So that was my worst job.